Welcome along to the launch of Property Fraud Awareness Week 2017, being powered by our legal partner, Anthony Gold Solicitors. And I'm joined by David Wedgwood. And David, I'm so excited that we're doing this week and that you've partnered with us because, we're both concerned about the increasing levels of property fraud, aren't we?
Definitely. We've seen a very marked increase in this type of fraud. And it's something that we've got a strong commitment towards preventing and, if possible, seeking redress for those victims.
And you've seen an increase in the transactional values as well, haven't you?
Absolutely. Well, as property prices have increased, so this type of fraud has become more and more attractive to fraudsters.
Let's talk about kind of fraud in the property arena. Why does it attract con men and charlatans?
I think the public feel very comfortable with property investments. Historically, it's always been a fairly safe investment, and people feel that there is some security in bricks and mortar. I think also there has been very high returns on property, and so that again makes people more comfortable around investment in property.
I think we're both concerned about the lack of regulation in certain sectors and also the lack of enforcement.
Definitely, that is something we've certainly experienced. Property isn't a regulated investment, and getting often the authorities interested in going against wrongdoers can be difficult in grey areas, because often these fraudsters operate in a grey area as to whether between mis-selling and fraud.
Indeed, we're seeing a lot of that. I think, there's wide variety of property frauds, from identity theft to sell a property that doesn't belong to you, to offering excessively high rates of return if somebody loans you some money, almost Ponzi type schemes we've seen. If we talk generically, these kind of frauds, they have some kind of red flags that will always crop up. What are we looking for?
I think anyone who guarantees you a return at over 10% that must be a red flag. I think also if a lot of people are investing in one property, again, that is something that is wide open to a fraudster taking advantage of that sort of arrangement.
And in fact, that would be, it could fall under a collective investment scheme, which is a highly regulated activity by the Financial Conduct Authority. And many people offering these type of schemes are not regulated by the FCA. They're not registered with them.
Yes, I mean, my experience is that almost all of them are operating in the unregulated sector.
Indeed. I think another red flag is that it's a limited offer. You've got to act quickly to take it.
Yes.
When people are getting these kind of signals, that's the time to say, actually, I've got to be careful here.
Yes, I mean, these salesmen are sophisticated, they're trained, and they do try and pressurise people into selling. They don't want people to go away and think about it and look at and do some research, and they're trying to get you to sell there and then, and that must be a red flag.
One thing that I commonly hear when I talk to people who have been scammed is they'll say, "Oh, but he was so nice. She was so nice," and they, just because somebody's nice doesn't mean that they're not going to scam you.
Sometimes these people actually believe what they're saying. They believe their lies, and perhaps they've been told by the person employing them that this isn't a great investment and they're doing great good. But that doesn't take away from the structure of the arrangement, and it doesn't take away the red flags. So regardless of what the person's like, do think once, think twice, and before investing in these types of high-risk operations.
I think another sort of red flag that I would suggest is also if something seems very complex. If something is legitimate, it should be easy to understand. If you can't understand it, then that should be a warning sign.
That's true, and often people, they do try and become technical, and in that way they try and reassure people and confuse people. Often they try and put in some social good in there, and that it's environmentally good for the planet in some way in what you're investing in. I've had people investing in the rainforest, in protection of the rainforest. You buy some teak in Africa, or I've had people investing in carbon credits or some other arrangement, and these are very strange and bizarre investments, and the reason why they are strange is because often they're not very profitable, and people shouldn't really be investing in them unless they have a great experience and knowledge of what they're doing.
Absolutely, and that really leads us on to say that the best possible way to avoid being scammed is to undertake your due diligence.
Yes, and that is not a simple process, and because these people are sophisticated and they have gone through this process many times, and they will give you false information, and you have to look behind that, which is not a simple operation. It's not something you can do just from on your computer. It's often a very complex process.
I think it's interesting that you mentioned that a lot of people perpetrating these activities that turn out to be fraudulent, they don't start off with that intent. They believe that they've got a product or service that's good, but then perhaps they scale up too quickly, or they get stars in their eyes about how much money they're making, and things start to kind of unravel. And you know, very much when that starts to happen, you'll start to see warning signs on the social web that all is not quite right.
That's right, because a lot of people lose their money not through direct frauds, but through high-risk investments that have basically gone wrong. And sometimes it isn't a Ponzi scheme, it's just simply a company is investing in something and they aren't getting enough money to pay out the promised return. Believe me, they will be taking their commission, believe me, they'll be taking their salary, but it may well be that the business just hits a brick wall when frankly they just can't afford to carry on paying out the returns.
Talking of the due diligence process, you know, there's so many resources there that people can use to undertake due diligence, like putting somebody's name into Google, seeing what crops up on property tribes.
Yes.
But a very common thing for me to recommend is to go and look at Companies House, because if, for instance, the company hasn't filed their accounts on time, that could suggest that they are administratively delinquent.
Yes, absolutely. Or maybe they're a brand new company. They're a company without any assets, and therefore not worth the paper. Therefore, your contract isn't worth the paper it's written on. So, Companies House is a very good starting point.
And I think also, particularly where there's loans involved or people in joint ventures, they're often told that they'll get a charge on the property, which does indeed represent security. But I think it's important that people understand that if things do go wrong, that to actually regain possession of that property could cost £40,000-50,000, to get possession of your assets. So again, just because something has a charge, it's not the be-all and end-all. You've got to understand the implications.
Absolutely, and often there's a previous charge, there's a prior charge, which may perhaps take up all the value of the property, leaving your second or third charge with no value at all. Sometimes people say they're going to give you security, and they're not giving you a charge, they're just giving you a notice. And a registered notice, again, offers very little security. So people will try and bamboozle you and try and assure you that this investment is safe as houses, whereas in fact you have to look a lot deeper than that, and perhaps take professional advice if you're investing a large amount of money.
Indeed, and to get an independent solicitor to look at your contract. Don't use the solicitor recommended by the person that's selling you the product or service.
Yes, some of these schemes, they will try and give themselves some sort of credibility by saying that they're attached to a solicitor or an accountant, and although that does help perhaps recovery if there is a problem, it doesn't necessarily mean that it gives you security, because that solicitor may be acting for them, not for you.
And I think we just wanted to add that there is one thing that you can do that's quite simple, that can give you some form of redress, and that is to pay via a credit card. And I would refer you to the case between Malouf and MBNA. I'll provide a link to that underneath this video, which will give you some insights into how you can claim back for a scam under Section 75 of the Consumer Credit Act. So David, we've covered actually quite a lot of ground in this video, but this is just the start, because we've got this whole week of content coming up to really talk about prevention, because actually prevention is always less heartache, less stress, and less financially damaging than going for cure.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think all of my clients, although even the ones we're very successful in recovering for their money for, they would much rather not have gone through the process. Clients experience great stress, great heartache, and if you can just avoid the investment in the first place, that is the best policy.
Yeah, so we're just going to finish by saying due diligence is absolutely key. And two of our favourite phrases here at Property Tribes and Anthony Gold Law are, if it sounds too good to be true, it is, every time, without fail, no exceptions. And secondly, there's a mug in every deal. If you can't see who it is, it could turn out to be you. So on that note, welcome to Fraud Week here on Property Tribes, and tune in over the coming days because we'll be joined by Anthony Gold Partners to share some insights into property fraud and how you can avoid it.